I'm a bad motherfucker.
Important for you to do this.
Is the audio
I wonder
playing?
myself.
Do you hear the audio? I'm not hearing it.
You mean, am I
Yeah,
the alien ambassador, whether I like it or not?
Are you hearing the audio, Matt?
Yeah.
Well, I often, when asked this question, I've said, you know, it beats honest work. I mean, my brother is a PhD in 3 subjects and works in hard science, and I don't think it's brought him immense happiness, not that he's despondent, but I was always kind of a slider, you know, and certainly when I reached La Chirera in 1971, I had a price on my head by the FBI. I was running out of money. I was at the end of my rope to La Chirera, and then they recruited me and said, you know, with a mouth like yours, there's a place for you in our organization. And, you know, I've worked in deep background positions about which the less said, the better. And then, you know, about 15 years ago, they shifted me into public relations, and I've been there to the present. I think ideas get me high, and I like the feeling of understanding, and I love diversity to the point of weirdness. I mean,
There's more to it than that for you, because, you know, being tuned into ideas and turned on by ideas is one thing, but you can keep it just to yourself. The sharing of it is something else. I think that's what we get, right?
Well, one thing is, I'm really fascinated. I think of myself as a pretty savvy person, and not easily led into false dogma. Well, so that's enough of that. Now I want to address the concerns that we've been dealing with over the past 2 days. And from my perspective, we sort of designed this weekend with the notion of showcasing Ryan's thought, and I think we've done that very well. To put what I'm going to say this morning in context, I just want to briefly review the basis of her theory. It is quite simply that the absence of patriarchy does not imply matriarchy. The natural and most long-running form of human organization is what Ryan has named partnership society. Partnership societies were the norm up until, pick a number, 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago. In any case, eventually falling with the fall of Minoan Crete to Mycenaean invaders around 1000 BC, and that set us into the era of dominator cultures, which she believes, and I agree with her, is a temporary, I won't say aberration, a temporary, necessary adaptation, but one that we can now move beyond. My Ryan's approach is basically to say what happened, that there was partnership society, and then she's very insistent that there was a confluence of factors which caused the shift from the partnership society to the dominator culture. I, being cast more in the fanatical mode, prefer to think that there was one major cause, and that its adumbrations can be explicated by the methods of archaeology, good logic, and a little visionary imagining. And so I want to tell you the story this morning. Remember, I said yesterday, the best idea will win. And if you want to do that kind of total revisioning of the position of human beings in the world, I think you have to take at first a deconstructionist approach and take away everything that impedes the construction of the new point of view.
And here we're just showing the connections to Rand Eisler and Intel. Gregory Bateson, one of the co-founders of the CIA, Macy conferences, which are MKUltra, etc. Of course, there's no CIA MKUltra connections there for Terence McKenna. None at all. Humanists, Dr. John Dee, the spy master, Julian Huxley, cybernetics, which of course is MKUltra, Stanford Research Institute, Tavistock.
Hi, I just wanted to know if you have heard about a book called The Mutant Message.
No.
Okay, I want to tell you a little bit about it because it's very interesting. I think it follows what you're talking about.
Totally
I love your idea of a collective consciousness, and I think the book describes an Aboriginal tribe in Australia that has been living out the way in which you're speaking, a collective. And what they've come to the conclusion of is that they can no longer procreate because they have recognized that they can no longer exist on this planet. And the reason they call the book The Mutant Message is that they believe we are a mutant life form on this planet that is destroying it to the extent that they can no longer continue their lineage. And this is an interesting concept because it's the first culture I know that has selectively chosen not to breed. And along with your concept of raising our consciousness so that we understand the destructive nature of ourselves, what about a parallel vision of reducing our population as these people are, of consciously choosing not to procreate at this time?
You know, I'd like to point out here, it's eugenics for the elite, it's dysgenics for everybody else. People get hung up on that point constantly.
That, and the mushroom pointed this out to me, if every woman had only one child, the population of the planet would fall 50% in 40 years. 50% in 40 years without war, revolution, coercion, anything else. Now, when you suggest this to people, they say, well, didn't they try that in China and it failed? Yes, but you have to think about a couple of things. First of all, a child born to a woman in Maui or Malibu or Manhattan, that child will use between 800 and 1,000 times more resources in its lifetime than a child born to a woman in Bangladesh. Why do we preach birth control in Bangladesh? We should be preaching it on Maui, Manhattan, and Malibu, because the women in those places are highly educated, socially responsible, global people, and therefore are the population most likely to respond to this suggestion. If 15% of the women in the high-tech industrial democracies were to limit their childbearing to one child, within 10 years, certain pressure indicators on the planet would begin to move away from the red and into the black. So I think that we have got to deal with this question of population. There are clearly too many people. And one woman, one child, you know, you don't have to be a rocket scientist or a psychedelic advocate to understand the impact of that. If the population of the Earth were cut in half, everybody alive would be twice as wealthy. It's possible in 120 years that we could reduce the Earth's population to 1 billion very healthy, very comfortable, very well-educated people. Okay, that's part of what the mushroom said, and I think it may seem radical in some circles, but not here, perhaps. It also said something else, which I rarely mention, but since you brought it up, there are not only too many people, there are too many men. And I would be very interested in seeing a set of social policies, tax incentives, medical policies, insurance policies put in place to limit male birth. it's very rare in
Terence
mammal
McKenna's son.
populations that you have a 50-50 ratio of male to female. And in fact, it's well known
Telling everybody else to
that
limit male birth while he has a son,
infants
Finn.
are less robust than female infants. And the
Sitting there with
reason
the
we
Department
have
of
a
Defense agent.
50-50 sexual ratio
Bruce
is
Daber.
because we artificially support males and withdraw resources from females. I suspect that in the High Paleolithic, the ratio was closer to 2 to 1. And my supposition in thinking about this is probably that the best ratio is about 3 to 1. This is the way to feminize the human race. If you're serious, this is the way to advance women. If you're serious, then what you have is less men, women whose dedication to the reproductive activities is confined in time to the amount of time it takes to raise only one child. This would be tremendously salutary to our problems. I've never heard it advocated, even by the most radical lesbian feminist yada yada. I've never heard anyone say male birth should be limited, but it obviously should, and through amniocentesis and this sort of thing, we can steer ourselves toward a population with the predominance
Angela
of females,
Cordero
and
says
those
she
females
wants
should have
75
only
sons
one
now. Good on
child,
you.
and 75% of those children should also be female. This would seem, and I don't consider myself a gung-ho feminist. I mean, I'm a feminist, but I don't read the literature or try to understand all the factions and theories. As a humanist, I advocate a reduction in male births. It just seems obvious that that's the way to go. If it doesn't seem obvious to you, then let's have a public debate about it and at least make it part of the rhetoric of the culture that this is an option for people to think about.
Was there a connection between Terence or me and the CIA?
Psychedelic movement in general? Or?
I
This
can't
is
speak
recorded
for the
at the Free Your
psychedelic
Mind
movement in
conference,
general,
I think,
but I can
2015.
definitively tell you that neither
They
Terence
tried to
nor
get me
I
there as well. I
ever
refused to go.
had anything to do with the CIA.
I think they
if you're
wanted to
talking
start
about
a
the
big
Central Intelligence
feud
Agency.
between me and Dennis.
Now
there
you might
at
say,
the,
well, I could crack a
conference.
joke and say, yes, well, we worked for the CIA, we worked for the Cosmic Intelligence Agency. But then
Cosmic
some of your
Intelligence
audience
Agency.
might
He's basically
misconstrue that.
admitting it.
Yeah.
just
So
making
let
a
me
joke out
make
of
it clear. He never worked for the CIA, and neither did I.
Do you know where this comes from? There's a specific
Never
talk
mind
he gave
that
where
the
he
Esalen
discusses
Institute is a
agents.
CIA
And
Yes, I know where it comes from, and I will dissect that right now. He said in one talk something casually about, well, I was working deep cover for a while, and then they moved me into PR, right? And who the they
Notice
are
how he's downplaying
was
everything,
never
and they're trying to
specified.
confuse
But
it
I
with
can tell you
Terence's
who the
joke
they
up
are,
above in the
because those
first
remarks
paragraph when it's
Jan
clear below
Irvin
that he
either
was running
wasn't
from the
paying
FBI
attention
and they recruited
or was
him.
taking them out of context, or is just an idiot, because the meaning of it is clear if you listen to the whole talk, and he is talking about he worked for the
the
mushrooms,
psilocybin itself.
Yeah,
which
Terence
he
McKenna,
did
the mushrooms got
understand,
Terrence out
correctly
of
or not, to be
his trouble with
actually
the
a
FBI for promoting
whether
drugs.
it was the mushrooms
That's
themselves
really
or they were
brilliant there,
representative
Dennis. Nice
of
spin.
an intelligent race that was controlling it, but he worked for the mushrooms. That was the they that he worked for, and he was deep cover, and that refers to the years when he was not in public, when he was actually in the basement growing mushrooms as furiously as he possibly could, distributing those. That's deep cover, right? Then he decided, well, this is not sustainable. Sooner
This
or
is
later,
a chart.
they're
I want to
gonna,
pause this here
catch up
for
with
just a
me on.
second to discuss this. These are the things that Terence promoted over the years through his many talks and lectures. Native revivalism, which is the archaic revival, that was a term created by CIA co-founder Gregory Bateson, which is found in his OSS memos, which I published in an article about 5 years ago. Psychedelics, obviously, that's CIA, MKUltra, military intelligence, and the counterculture was the real bulk of the MKUltra program, not just the Manchurian Candidate red herring. Neo-shamanism, that's Bateson, MKUltra, SRI, Changing Images of Man. Also, Gordon Wasson was behind that, launching the neo-shamanic thing with Maria Sabina down in Oaxaca, Mexico. Dominator culture we just saw, that's Rihanna Eisler, McKenna, and that comes out of the Club of Rome. And feminism, which is, I've exposed the quotes from Gloria Steinem working for the CIA many times, but that's a big CIA front as well, of course, being promoted by Eisler, Joyce Glassman, etc. 2012 was created by CIA agent and Yale professor Michael Coe, and you can find that he was CIA right on the Wikipedia page. Stoned ape was a theory created by Terence, but it really comes out of Teilhard de Chardin's, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin's work from the Piltdown hoax, and he was a Jesuit and from the Roman Catholic Church, and of course that's humanism. He also worked with Julian Huxley on that, and then humanism is, again, Eisler, of course. McKenna is working on that, but Julian Huxley was a big humanist, which we saw a bit ago. And the Humanist Manifesto, transhumanism, again, that's a word even coined by Julian Huxley, promoted by the CIA, promoted by all of the eugenicists, etc. Even the Dalai Lama's in on that today. Timothy Leary, who admitted he was a CIA agent from, I think, 62 onward. I think he was CIA long before then. And then again, we see Teilhard there. Habit and novelty theory, that was originally... the Omega Point theory, promoted by Teilhard again, Alfred North Whitehead, and then Time Wave Zero, which came out of Teilhard yet again. Eugenics, John B.S. Haldane. That's where Terence gets the infamous quote that he twists a little bit. You know, the world isn't just stranger than you suppose. It's stranger than you can suppose. That's a quote that he changed from John Haldane. And then, of course, Aldous and Julian Huxley, the CIA et al. The New Age movement is, of course, right out of there and out of SRI, Changing Images of Man, the Esalen Institute, etc. Cybernetics, which we've shown on screen. Bateson, that's also the Macy conferences. Rianne Eisler, David Loy, Marshall McLuhan, I.A. Richards, Norbert Wiener, the Lindisfarne Association, CIA, et al. So this is almost finished here. I'll just finish playing that. I just wanted to break that down on what this chart is showing, because it shows how many projects that Terence, CIA and intelligence projects that Terence McKenna was really promoting, and the yellow arrows are the ones that are specifically CIA, while Dennis is sitting there saying that he had no ties to the CIA. And now we're going to see him ridicule the whole idea about the Esalen connections. And he wants to play down that Terence was actually scholar in residence at the Esalen Institute and not just someone passing through. So he spends a big lie there.
So he decided to go into public relations, and he started talking about it a lot more, and that's when he became, the spokesman that he is. But he was working for the mushrooms, and for Jan to take this and construe it to mean that he was working for the CIA, I mean, it's a really tortured stretch that you have to make that connection, considering how it was the context. And
people
also,
are asking what's SRI, that's Stanford Research Institute.
We were involved in all this stuff together quite deeply.
And also, I'm his brother. I think I know, and we were involved in all this stuff together quite deeply.
I've been to Esalen many times. Does that make me working for the CIA? Jan seems to think that everybody with having anything to do with psychedelics who happened to pass through Esalen was all part of this big conspiracy. Well, that's just utter horseshit. All kinds of people pass through Esalen. That doesn't mean that they're all involved in some conspiracy. I mean, it's just unbelievable. It's just such sloppy thinking.
There's so many intel connections behind McKenna and Dennis both. It's just absurd.
when all this comes up, I just feel like, well,
and then McKenna
pour
admitting
on.
that he's
I mean,
recruited by the
guy
FBI, and
needs
then he's at a CIA front organization under Aldous
adjust his
Huxley. It's
medications
just,
or something. I don't know. He's seriously
Dennis is
deluded.
clearly
Well, I
lying
appreciate you addressing it.
to
I know that
cover
there are
up his
people
own
curious about that,
involvement
so I
in
figured
the
we'd at least
program, in my
acknowledge
opinion.
Yeah.
So there's that, folks. And here, let's get this off the screen and go back here. There we go. Let me just move this back over so I can see. We had some good comments in the chat while that was playing. Where'd it go? One of these windows here has everybody in it. There it is. All right, so, yeah, Angela had some good comments in there going. Let's see. Jan has been on social media too long enough to know AJ will be discrediting to him to get involved with. If you do go on, you pretty much have to be light, Jan, because they just might shut you down, blah, blah, blah. They are probably already screwing with male births. There should be more male babies. Yes, they are. In fact, that's what all the soy formula is about and everything that they give kids to. Soy is very high in phytoestrogens. You should never give your male children a soy formula, etc. You know, that's very toxic, especially for male babies. And then Sanchez says, yes, there are less boys being born. The ratio used to be 50-50. It's because of the hormones and the food and everything else. It is changing things. That's correct. So anyway, did you have anything you wanted to add about that, Matthew?
Well, first off, let me say that was a great video, and you guys, everybody should share that one. But also look at the similarities between Terrence and Rogan. There's a lot of parallels there. So as you've exposed all the intel connections with Terrence and what his operation was, compare him to Rogan and look at the similarities between the two, because it's almost like Rogan stepped into that position in a new modern way, but it's very similar. And also anybody who has any questions about any of this stuff, who disagrees with you on this being an MK Ultra operation, this counterculture, share them the brain, give them the link to the brain. You cannot deny it.
Well, the issue is they won't even take the time to go through. They'll look at it and see a bunch of connections, but they won't bother to see how it all connects and all the, 11,000 citations in there, et cetera,
Yeah, unfortunately, because that thing, it's all there. It's everything you need. It's all there. So still, I think you should share it, and hopefully some people will look into it and wake up, because that needs to happen.
Yeah, and Mr. Cut, folks, says, we must share Jan and Matt's work. Everyone, please share with as many people as possible. And I'm going to say, download that Terrence McKenna video as well and share it, repost it everywhere, as well as my edit of Matthew's video with the corrected audio. And you know what? We've already been on for an hour. What happened to this being a short discussion?
I don't know, man. But it's good, though.
So much for that, right? So there were other comments in here that I was just wanting to go through and see what else was good in here. I get aggravated that most are comprehending that with heavy mushrooms, DMT, etc., are doorways to communications with the demons. Yeah, it's not the drugs don't bring you to Logos. That's the issue. You might get some different perspectives on things under the influence, and I get all these idiot comments all the time. Jan Irvin's never tried them before. I mean, it's totally ridiculous. It's like I used to write books on this stuff.
Yeah.
And then I woke up in the middle of it going, wait a second, this isn't good. And I've exposed this on my show for years, and it's ridiculous when people always go for the most idiotic attack that I've never tried them. And if you had tried DMT, you would never say this, right? And it's like when you understand Logos, and that Logos is God, not being high out of your mind and the world's, the universe spinning inside out or whatever from DMT and all of this stuff, I have done that stuff. I have experienced that. And that's exactly what I'm warning people away from. It's the left-hand path. It's not the right-hand path. It's not true spirituality. It's not coming to Logos or truth. And that's really what people need to understand, you know. And people, please subscribe to this backup channel and smash that like button, and you know, promote this video out there, promote the Terrence and Dennis McKenna exposed video, promote Matt's video on Joe Rogan being exposed. Let people know not to feed their children soy formula, you know, all of that garbage. It's just awful, but you know, get this work out there. Help as many people as we can.
Hey, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there for more AM Joy.